The cargo bay of the starship Dark Prophet reeked of fear and misery. Dozens of cages lined the metal walls, each one holding a different creature from across the galaxy. Some whimpered softly in the dim light. Others had given up hope entirely and lay silent in their prisons. Zixtal walked between the cages with cold satisfaction. His long, scaled fingers tapped against his datapad as he counted his profits. Each creature represented thousands of credits to the right buyer. The Velthari merchant had been in this business for 30 years, and his business had never been better. He stopped in front of two small cages near the back of the bay. Inside each cage was a dragon cub no bigger than a house cat. Their scales shimmered gold and copper in the artificial light. One was slightly larger than the other, with bright amber eyes that followed Zixtel's every movement. The smaller one lay curled up, breathing heavily with fever. These two cubs were his greatest prize. Dragons were nearly extinct now, hunted to near death by those who feared their power. Finding live cubs was almost impossible. Finding royal bloodline cubs was a miracle worth millions of credits. Zixtal had found them 3 days ago on Paraxis, the old dragon homeworld. Their parents had fought hard to protect the nest, breathing fire that melted his capture equipment and clawing through his soldiers' armor. But even ancient dragons could not stand against modern weapons. The adults died defending their young, never knowing their sacrifice was meaningless. The larger cub, the female, pressed herself against the bars of her cage and made soft, chirping sounds. She was trying to reach her brother in the next cage. Zixtal kicked the cage hard, making her tumble backward. "Quiet, little beast," he hissed in his native tongue. "You will be silent, or you will get no food." The cub understood the tone, if not the words. She backed away from the bars, but continued to watch him with those burning amber eyes. There was intelligence there, and hatred. Good intelligent creatures sold for more credits. A sharp beeping sound echoed through the ship. Zixtal's head snapped up as red warning lights began to flash. His ship's computer spoke in a calm, mechanical voice. Galactic Council patrol ship detected. Distance, 50,000 kilometers enclosing. Estimated time to intercept, 12 minutes. Zixtal cursed loudly and ran toward the bridge. His crew was already at their stations, faces tense with worry. The main screen showed a sleek white ship with the blue and gold markings of the Galactic Council. "Captain," his first officer said nervously, "they are requesting permission to board and inspect our cargo." Zixtal's mind raced. The Council had been cracking down on illegal creature trading lately. If they found his cargo, especially the dragon cubs, he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Or worse, they might execute him. "How long until we reach the jump point?" he demanded. 18 minutes, sir. They will catch us before we can." "Escape?" Zixtal stared at the approaching patrol ship. He had built his fortune by making hard choices quickly. This was just another business decision. The cubs were worth millions, but only if he lived to sell them. "Change course for Zarian 7, he ordered. "Sir, that is just a dead desert world. Why would we do not question me?" Zixtal snapped. "And prepare the emergency cargo release system." His crew obeyed, though he could see the confusion in their eyes. Psst. Zarian 7 appeared on the main screen as they changed course. It was a brown ball of sand and rock, with no signs of life anywhere on its surface. Perfect for what he had in mind. Back in the cargo bay, the dragon cubs seemed to sense something was wrong. The larger one stood up in her cage and chirped more loudly. Her brother lifted his head weakly, his golden eyes clouded with sickness. Zixtal worked quickly, transferring both cubs into a single containment pod. The pod was meant for emergency evacuations, with basic life support and a simple beacon. It would keep them alive for maybe a day or two on the planet's surface. After that, the desert heat would finish them. The female cub fought as he grabbed, her tiny claws scratching at his scaled hands. She tried to bite him, but her baby teeth could not penetrate his thick skin. He shoved her into the pod next to her sick brother, who barely had the strength to lift his head. "Nothing personal, little dragons," Zixtal said as he sealed the pod, "but you are too dangerous to keep and too valuable to let the Council find." dragged the pod to the cargo bay's ejection port. Through the small window, he could see Zarian 7 growing larger as they approached. The planet's surface was covered in endless dunes of red sand, broken only by jagged rock formations. No water, no plants, no shelter. Nothing could survive down there for long. The ship shuddered as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Warning alarms sounded as the hull heated up from friction. Zixtel ignored them all and focused on his controls. Cargo pod loaded and ready. For ejection, he announced to the bridge. "Sir, the council ship is still following us," his first officer reported. "Let them follow. By the time they search this ship, there will be nothing illegal to find." Zixtel pressed the ejection button. The cargo bay doors opened with a loud hiss, and the containment pod shot out into the planet's thin atmosphere. He watched through the external cameras as it disappeared into a massive sandstorm that was sweeping across the desert below. Inside the falling pod, the two dragon cubs huddled together as their prison tumbled through the violent winds. The larger cub wrapped her tiny body around her sick brother, trying to protect him from the terrible spinning motion. She chirped softly to him, a sound lost in the roar of the storm. The pod crashed into a sand dune with tremendous force, cracked and twisted. The life support systems sparked and died. Emergency lights flickered once and went dark, far above. Zixtel smiled coldly as he watched the storm swallow the crash site. Within hours, the shifting sands would bury the pod completely. The cubs would either die from their injuries, or from thirst, or from the planet's poisonous atmosphere. It did not matter which came first. "Course correction complete, Captain," his navigator announced. "We are clear of the planet and heading for the jump point." "Excellent. When the council boards us, we are just an honest cargo hauler carrying machine parts to the outer colonies." The Galactic Council patrol ship caught up to them 20 minutes later. The inspection took 3 hours, but they found nothing illegal. Zixtel answered their questions with practiced lies and false concern. Yes, he had heard about dragon poaching. Terrible business. He would certainly report any suspicious activity after the council ship left. Zixtel returned to his quarters and opened a bottle of expensive Altarian wine. He raised his glass toward the viewport, where Zarian 7 was now just a distant brown dot. "Farewell, little dragons," he said mockingly. "May your deaths be quick." He drained the glass and began planning his next hunting expedition. There were always more rare creatures to catch, and the galaxy was full of wealthy collectors willing to pay any price for the impossible. On the surface of Zarian 7, buried beneath 3 feet of sand, 2 small hearts continued to beat in the darkness. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the water extraction equipment one more time. The twin suns of Zarian 7 blazed overhead, turning the desert sand into a shimmering ocean of heat. His protective suit kept him alive, but it felt like wearing an oven. 3 days had passed since the big sandstorm. Jake was always busy after storms, checking his equipment and clearing sand from the water pumps. The Morrison family had been on this planet for 2 years now, slowly turning small patches of desert into farmable land. It was hard work, but someone had to prepare planets like this for future human colonies. Jake drove his sand rover across the dunes, following the route to his furthest water pump. The storm had been one of the worst he had seen. Winds strong enough to move mountains of sand and lightning that could be seen from space. His weather sensors had recorded wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour. As he crested a large dune, something caught his eye. There was a glint of metal half buried in the sand below. Jake stopped the rover and climbed down to investigate. Most of the object was hidden, but he could see enough to know it was not natural. Jake called his wife on the radio. "Lisa, I found something out here. Looks like a crashed pod or container of some kind." Lisa's voice crackled through the speaker. "Be careful, Jake. Could be debris from a smuggler ship. You know how many illegal traders use this sector? I will. Be careful. If it is a survival pod, there might be someone inside who needs help." Jake began digging with his portable shovel. The sand was loose from the recent storm, and he made good progress. After 20 minutes of work, he had uncovered most of a battered metal pod about the size of a large coffin. It had impact damage, and several cracks in the hull. He found the emergency release lever and pulled it hard. The pod's door opened with a grinding noise. Jake peered inside, expecting to find an injured alien or maybe valuable cargo. Instead, he found two small creatures, huddled together in the corner. They looked like tiny dragons from old Earth fairy tales. One was slightly larger than the other, with scales that shimmered gold and copper. The smaller one appeared to be very sick, breathing in short, painful gasps. "What in the world, Jake?" whispered the larger creature, lifted its head and looked at him with bright amber eyes. It made a soft chirping sound, almost like a bird. Jake could see intelligence in those eyes, and something else. Desperation. Jake activated his suit's recording system. "Lisa, you need to see this. I am sending you video now." He held up his helmet camera so Lisa could see the creatures. Her gasp came through the radio immediately. "Jake, those are dragon cubs. Actual dragons. Do you have any idea how rare they are? Dragons? I thought they were just legends." "Wow. They are real, but almost extinct. There might be less than 100 left in the entire galaxy. Jake, you have to bring them home right now. They look like they are dying." Jake looked at the cubs again. The larger one was trying to wake up her brother, nudging him gently with her snout. The smaller cub's breathing was getting weaker. "Are you sure about this, Lisa? Dragons are dangerous, right? These are babies, Jake. They are no more dangerous than puppies right now. But they will die if we do not help them. Their life support system is dead, and they have been breathing the planet's atmosphere for days." Jake made his decision. He reached into the pod carefully, speaking in a gentle voice. "Easy there, little ones. I am going to help you."
The larger
cub did not try to bite or scratch him. Instead, she seemed to understand that he was trying to help. She let him pick up her sick brother first, then climbed into his arms herself. Jake was surprised by how light they were. Each cub weighed no more than a house cat. Their scales felt warm and smooth, like polished stone. The sick one was burning. With fever, he placed both cubs in the rover's passenger compartment and activated the life support system. Clean, cool air began flowing around them. The larger cub immediately perked up. While her brother's breathing seemed to ease slightly, the drive back to the family compound took 30 minutes. Jake called ahead to warn his wife and daughter that he was bringing guests. Amy Morrison was waiting outside. When the rover arrived, at 16, she had spent most of her life on frontier worlds with her parents. She had seen many strange alien creatures, but never anything like this. "Dad, they are beautiful," she said as Jake carefully lifted the cubs from the rover. "Beautiful. And illegal," Lisa said as she joined them. "Dragons are protected by Galactic Council law. We could go to prison just for having them." "So what do we do?" Jake asked. "Leave them to die?" Lisa looked at the cubs in her husband's arms. The smaller one opened his golden eyes for the first time and looked directly at her. In that moment, she saw something that reminded her of her own daughter when Amy was a baby. Trust, hope, a desperate need for someone to care. "We help them," Lisa said firmly. "Prison is better than letting children die." They carried the cubs into their underground facility. The Morrison home was built into a hillside, protected from the planet's harsh weather and hidden from orbital scans. Lisa quickly set up a temporary medical area in their spare room. Amy knelt beside the cubs as her mother worked. "What should we call them?" "We should not name them," Lisa warned. "Names make it harder to let go." But Amy was already studying the cubs' coloring. The larger female had scales that shifted from gold to deep red in the light. The smaller male was darker, with scales that looked like polished charcoal with copper highlights.
Ember,
Amy said, pointing to the female. "And Ash," she added, touching the male gently. Lisa sighed, but did not argue. She was too busy trying to save Ash's life. The little male's fever was dangerously high, and his breathing was becoming more labored. She gave him a mild sedative and began treating him with her limited medical supplies. Ember watched everything with alert eyes. She stayed close to her brother, chirping softly to him whenever he stirred. When Amy sat down beside them, Ember looked at her for a long moment, then carefully moved closer. "I think she likes you," Jake observed. Amy slowly extended her hand. Ember sniffed it cautiously, then pressed her small head against Amy's palm. The young dragon's scales were fever-warm, but incredibly soft. "Do not get too attached," Lisa warned. Without looking up from her patient, "These cubs belong in a proper sanctuary, not on a desert planet with humans." But even as she spoke, Lisa found herself working harder than ever to save the little male's life. Amy continued to stroke Ember gently. The female cubs seemed to relax for the first time since the crash. Jake stood in the doorway, watching his family care for creatures that could get them all arrested. Thought about calling the authorities. About doing the legal thing. Then he looked at Ember's trusting amber eyes and Ash's small, still form. "How long before they are strong enough to travel?" he asked. "If Ash survives the night, maybe a week or two," Lisa replied. "Why?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "I'm thinking we might need to make some changes around here. Long-term changes." Amy looked up at her father with gratitude in her eyes. Ember chirped softly, as if she understood what the humans were discussing.
"Oh."
In the medical bed, Ash's breathing became a little steadier. Outside, the twin suns began to set over the desert, painting the sand dunes in shades of gold and copper that matched the cub's scales perfectly. Commander Veltar studied the sensor readings on his ship's main screen. The sleek Galactic Council vessel Justice's Edge hung in orbit above Zarian 7, its powerful scanners sweeping across the desert planet's surface. "Sir, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the northern continent," his science officer reported. "The readings matched those we found at the Paraxis incident site." Veltar's scaled face remained calm, but inside he felt a surge of excitement. 3 days ago, his team had discovered the aftermath of an illegal raid on the dragon homeworld. Adult dragons had been killed and their nest had been destroyed. The evidence pointed to professional poachers, but they had found no cubs. "Survivors have made it to this planet?" Veltar asked. "It is possible, sir. The energy readings are weak, but consistent with young dragon life signs." Veltar made his decision quickly. "Prepare a landing team. We will investigate personally." On the planet's surface, Jake Morrison was making his morning rounds when his early warning system began beeping. He rushed back to the compound, where Lisa was already checking their sensor displays. "Council ship in orbit," she announced grimly. "They are scanning the planet." Amy looked up from where she sat with Ember and Ash. Both cubs were much healthier now after a week of careful treatment. Ash's fever had broken 2 days ago, and he was starting to eat solid food. Ember had grown noticeably larger and was beginning to show signs of her natural fire abilities. "Can they detect the cubs?" Amy asked, worried. "Not directly," Jake replied. "But dragons give off a unique energy signature. They scan too closely." "I've been working on that problem," Lisa interrupted. She led them to her laboratory, where several devices hummed quietly. "I modified our power generators to create false readings. To their sensors, this should look like normal mining equipment." Jake examined his wife's work. Lisa had always been brilliant with technology, but this was impressive even for her. She had created a complex web of fake energy patterns that would hide the cubs' natural signatures. "How long will this work?" he asked. "As long as they do not land and search by hand. The energy masking only works from orbit." Amy felt her stomach tighten with fear. What if they do land? "Then we hide the cubs in the emergency shelter and hope for the best," Jake said. They had prepared for this possibility. Deep beneath their compound was a hidden room originally designed for sandstorm emergencies. It was shielded from most sensors and had its own air supply. The cubs could survive there for several days if necessary. Ember seemed to sense the tension. "In the room," she chirped softly and moved closer to Amy, pressing against her leg. Ash followed his sister, still weak, but able to walk now. Both cubs had learned to recognize their names and were starting to understand simple human words. "They trust us," Amy said quietly. "We cannot let them down." Meanwhile, in orbit, Commander Veltar was growing frustrated. His scanners kept detecting energy readings, but they were inconsistent. Sometimes the signatures appeared strong. Other times, they disappeared completely. "Sir, the readings could be natural crystal formations," his science officer suggested. This planet has unusual mineral deposits that might interfere with our equipment. Veltar considered this explanation. It was possible, but his instincts told him something was wrong. He had been hunting illegal traders for 15 years, and he had learned to trust his suspicions. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "I want to investigate these readings personally." Back on the surface, the Morrison family's sensor alarms began. Screaming, small craft had separated from the council ship and was heading for their location. "They are landing," Lisa announced. 2 hours until touchdown. The family moved quickly. Amy helped guide Ember and Ash to the emergency shelter, while Jake and Lisa activated all their fake mining equipment. The compound needed to look like a normal terraforming operation. It's nothing more. The cubs did not want to be separated from Amy. Ember made distressed chirping sounds, tried to follow her up the stairs. Ash, still recovering, simply lay down and refused to move. "I know you do not understand," Amy said gently, kneeling beside them. "But bad people are coming. People who would hurt you. You have to hide." Somehow the cubs seemed to understand the seriousness in her voice. Ember nuzzled Amy's hand one more time, then led her brother into the hidden room. Amy sealed the entrance and activated the air recycling system. Commander Veltar's shuttle landed in a cloud of dust and sand. He emerged with 2 armed guards. In a portable scanner, his official council uniform bright against the brown landscape, Jake walked out to meet them, trying to look surprised and helpful. "Council officers, what brings you to Zarian 7? "Routine investigation," Veltar replied coldly. "We have reports of illegal activity in this sector. What is your business here?" "Terraforming and water extraction," Jake answered truthfully. "My family has been here for 2 years, preparing the planet for future colonization." Veltar studied Jake carefully. Humans were known for their ability to lie convincingly, but this one seemed genuinely puzzled by their arrival. Still, the energy readings were strongest near this location. "We need to scan your facility," Veltar announced. "Of course," Jake replied. "Though I should warn you, our equipment might interfere with your sensors. We use high-powered generators for the water pumps." Lisa and Amy joined them outside, both trying to appear calm. Amy's heart was racing, but she forced herself to smile. At the council officers, Veltar's scanner beeped as he walked around the compound. The readings were confusing, lots of energy signatures, but nothing that clearly indicated dragons. The humans' equipment did seem to be causing interference. "What is in your underground levels?" Veltar asked. "Storage, workshop, living quarters," Lisa replied. "The surface gets too hot during the day, so we built most of our facility underground." For the next hour, Veltar and his team searched the compound thoroughly. They found exactly what the Morrison family had said they would find: terraforming equipment, water processing systems, and a modest family home. The portable scanner detected the cubs' hiding place twice, but each time the readings were masked by Lisa's fake energy generators to Veltar's equipment. It looked like another piece of mining machinery. Amy held her breath every time the officers passed near the hidden room. She could only imagine how frightened Ember and Ash must be, trapped in the dark with strange voices. Echoing above them, finally, Veltar seemed satisfied. "Your permits appear to be in order," he told Jake. "But we may return if our investigation continues." "You are welcome any time," Jake replied. "We always cooperate with council authorities." After the shuttle departed, the family waited another hour before opening the emergency shelter. Ember burst out first, looking around frantically until she spotted Amy. The young dragon ran to her and pressed against her legs. Chirping with relief, Ash emerged more slowly, but he too seemed happy to see his human family again. Lisa knelt down and checked both cubs for signs of stress. They appeared healthy, just frightened by the experience. "That was too close," Jake said grimly. "They will be back." "Then we need a better plan," Lisa replied. "The cubs are growing. Quickly soon they will be too large to hide, and their energy signatures will be too strong to mask." Amy looked down at Ember and Ash, who were now playing together as if nothing had happened. They trusted their human family completely, never doubting that they would be protected. "We need help," Amy said quietly. "Someone who knows about dragons and can tell us what to do." Jake nodded slowly. His daughter was right, but getting help meant trusting someone else with their secret. One wrong choice could doom them all. In orbit above Zarian 7, Commander Veltar stared at the sensor readings from his search. Something was not right about that human family, but he could not prove it. He made a note in his log to return within the week. The hunt was just beginning. Amy sat quietly in the underground chamber with Ember and Ash, watching them practice their growing abilities. 2 weeks had passed since Commander Veltar's visit, and the cubs had changed dramatically. They were now the size of large dogs, their scales brighter and more beautiful than ever. Ember breathed small puffs of flame into her cupped claws. Controlling the fire with careful precision, Ash lay beside his sister, his golden eyes focused intensely on Amy's face. Lately, Amy had been getting strange feelings when she looked at him, as if he was trying to tell her something important. "What is it, Ash?" Amy whispered. "What are you trying to say?" Suddenly, images flooded Amy's mind. She saw flashes of memory that were not her own. A beautiful planet with crystal cities, adult dragons soaring through purple skies, and then terrible scenes of violence and death. She gasped and fell backward. Overwhelmed by the alien memories, Ember immediately moved to Amy's side, chirping with concern. Through the mental connection, Amy felt the female dragon's worry and love. But she also felt something else, ancient. Knowledge, royal bloodlines, and the weight of being the last of her kind. "Mom, Dad?" Amy called out, her voice shaking. Jake and Lisa rushed into the chamber. Finding Amy sitting on the floor with both cubs pressed against her sides, she looked pale and confused. "What happened?" Lisa asked, kneeling beside her daughter. "They were showing me memories," Amy said slowly. "Not just any memories. Their memories. Their parents, their home, everything that happened to them." Jake frowned. "Dragons can do that." "These are not ordinary dragons," Amy replied, her voice growing stronger. "They are royalty. The last of the royal bloodline. And they remember everything." They saw more images. Amy saw more images. She saw Zixtal's cruel face, felt the terror of being captured, and experienced the despair of watching their parents die. But she also saw something else. Ancient dragon knowledge passed down through generations, the location of hidden dragon colonies, and most importantly, the truth about their species. Dragons are not just intelligent animals, Amy explained. To her parents, they are guardians. For thousands of years, they protected other species from dangers in space. They were peacekeepers, not monsters. Lisa stared at the cubs with new understanding. That explains why they were hunted. Someone wanted to eliminate the galaxy's natural protectors. Amy nodded, still processing the flood of information. There are more dragons out there, small groups hiding on distant planets, waiting for the royal line to return and unite them. Ember chirped softly and pressed her snout against Amy's hand. Through their connection, Amy felt the dragon's determination. These cubs had a destiny beyond just surviving. They had to restore their species and reclaim their ancient role as protectors. "We have to help them," Amy said firmly. "They are not just pets or refugees. They are the future of their entire species." Jake was about to respond when their security alarms began blaring. On the monitor, they could see a familiar figure approaching their compound, but this time, he was not wearing a council uniform. "Zixtal," Amy said, the name coming to her through Ember's memories, the one who took them from their home. Velthari merchant moved carefully toward their facility, carrying a large weapon and scanning for signs of life. He had traded his official merchant clothing for dark combat gear, and his reptilian face showed cold determination. Jake grabbed his emergency communicator. "Lisa, take Amy and the cubs to the deepest shelter. I will handle this," Amy said. Firmly, the cubs recognize his scent. They are terrified, but they are also angry. This is the creature that killed their parents. As if responding to her words, both Ember and Ash began to glow faintly. Their scales shimmered with inner light, and the air around them started to feel charged with energy. "Amy, get away from them," Lisa warned. They were about to use their powers, but Amy did not move. Instead, she placed her hands on both cubs, feeling their power flow through her. To her amazement, she found she could direct their abilities. focusing their energy and helping them control it. I can help them, Amy whispered in wonder. I can be their guide. Above ground, Zixtal had reached the main entrance. He used his weapon to blast through the security door, then began moving through the facility with practiced efficiency. He had tracked the energy signatures here, and he knew the cubs were somewhere in this building. Little dragons, he called. Out in his hissing voice, I know you are here. Your human friends cannot protect you from me. Jake emerged from the upper level, carrying his own weapon. This is private property. You have no right to be here, Zixtal laughed coldly. I have the right of ownership, human. Those creatures belong to me. I paid for them with the blood of their parents. They are not property, Jake replied, raising his weapon. They are children, children who will grow up to be very dangerous. Adults, Zixtal said. But do not worry. I will not let them live that long. Ah! The alien fired his weapon, but Jake dove for cover behind a metal support beam. The energy blast melted a hole in the wall where he had been standing. Zixtal advanced carefully, his weapon trained on Jake's hiding spot. Commander Veltar will be very interested to learn about your illegal pets, Zixtal called out. Perhaps I will let him arrest you before I dispose of the cubs. That was when the temperature in the room suddenly spiked. A golden glow began emanating from the floor below, growing brighter by the second. Wavering as he stared at the strange light, Amy emerged from the stairway, walking slowly and deliberately. Her eyes were glowing with the same golden light as the cubs, and power seemed to radiate from her small frame. Behind her came Ember and Ash, both now fully grown to their current size, and blazing with inner fire. You killed our parents, Amy said, but her voice carried the authority of the dragon cub speaking through her. You destroyed our home. You left us to die in the desert. Zixtal raised his weapon toward Amy, but found he could not pull the trigger. The combined power of the two cubs, channeled through their human friend, held him frozen in place. Possible, he whispered. Humans cannot bond with dragons. It has never been done. Many things have never been done, Amy replied. Until now. The cubs stepped forward, placing themselves between Amy and the alien. Their combined power created a shimmering barrier that deflected Zixtal's weapon when he finally managed to fire it. But the blast also triggered the facility's emergency beacon. Within minutes, Commander Veltar's voice crackled over the communication system. This is the Galactic Council. We have detected weapons fire and are responding immediately. All parties will surrender for questioning. Zixtal's face twisted with rage and fear. His illegal presence on the planet would be impossible to explain to the Council. But he was not going to leave empty-handed. If I cannot have them, then no one can, he snarled. Pulling out a larger weapon, one designed to bring down buildings, Amy felt the cubs' terror through their connection. But she also felt their determination. They would not run this time. They would not hide. They would protect their human family the same way their parents had tried to protect them. The golden light around. Amy and the cubs grew blinder, and the air itself seemed to sing with power. For the first time in centuries, dragon royalty was ready to reclaim their heritage, and they were not doing it alone. The golden light from Amy and the cubs filled the entire room as Zixtal raised his building destroyer weapon. But before he could fire, the facility's main door exploded inward. Commander Veltar burst through with his security team weapons, drawn and ready. Drop your weapons immediately, Veltar commanded, his scanner already detecting the illegal heavy artillery that Zixtal carried. Zixtal spun around, caught between the council forces and the glowing humans and dragons. His mind raced, looking for an escape or an explanation that would save him. Commander, these humans are harboring illegal dragons, he said quickly. I was trying to recover stolen property when they attacked me. Veltar's eyes moved from Zixtal to Amy and the cubs. He had suspected something during his last visit, but seeing actual dragons left him speechless. The cubs were magnificent, their scales gleaming like precious metals, their eyes blazing with ancient intelligence. Amy, let them see, Jake said quietly from his hiding place. Show them what really happened. Amy nodded and stepped forward. The cubs moved with her, their trust in their human family absolute. Through their mental connection, Amy projected. the cub's memories directly into Commander Veltar's mind. The Velthari officer staggered as images flooded his consciousness. He saw the attack on Paraxis, the murder of the adult dragons, the cubs being captured and caged. He felt their terror as Zixtal ejected them into the desert storm, expecting them to die. But he also saw something else. The kindness, the Morrison family had shown, the careful medical treatment, the love and protection they had given to creatures they barely understood. He saw Amy forming a bond that experts had claimed was impossible between humans and dragons. "The cubs are showing you the truth," Amy said, her voice carrying the authority of dragon royalty. "Zixtal destroyed their family and tried to murder them. We saved their lives." Veltar looked at his fellow Valthari with disgust and anger. "You killed the Paraxis nest. You destroyed the royal line." "They were just animals," Zixtal replied desperately. "Dangerous animals that needed to be controlled." "Animals do not have royal bloodlines," Veltar snapped. "Animals do not carry the ancient knowledge of their species. You have committed genocide." Zixtal realized his lies were falling apart. In desperation, he raised his weapon toward the cubs, but Ember and Ash were ready. Their combined power created a shield of pure energy that not only stopped his blast but reflected it back at him. The weapon exploded in his hands, and Zixtal fell unconscious from the feedback. Commander Veltar's security team quickly restrained the unconscious merchant. But Veltar himself continued to stare at Amy and the cubs, trying to process what he had witnessed. "The bond between you and the dragons," he said slowly. "How is this possible?" "I do not know," Amy admitted. "It just happened naturally. They needed help, and somehow I could understand them." Lisa stepped forward, her scientist mind working quickly. "Commander, these cubs are the last of the royal dragon line. They carry genetic memories going back thousands of years. They know the locations of hidden dragon colonies and the ancient knowledge of their people. If they die," Jake added, "an entire species dies with them. A species that once protected the galaxy from threats we cannot even imagine." Veltar was quiet for a long moment, weighing his duty to Galactic Council law against what he had learned. Dragons were indeed illegal to possess, but these cubs were not ordinary dragons. They were the key to restoring a lost civilization. "The cubs cannot remain here," he said finally. "They need proper care and protection." Amy's heart sank. She had known this moment would come, but the thought of losing Ember and Ash was devastating. The cubs pressed closer to her, sensing her distress. "However," Veltar continued, "the bond you have formed with them is unprecedented. It may be the key to their species' survival." He activated his communication device. "This is Commander Veltar. I need an immediate conference with the Galactic Council. Priority Alpha. I am recommending the establishment of a protected sanctuary world." Over the next hour, Veltar explained his proposal to the council leadership. Zarian 7 would become a protected dragon sanctuary, with the Morrison family as official guardians. The planet's harsh environment and remote location would provide security, while its unique energy fields seemed to enhance the cubs' natural abilities. The council's response was swift and positive. The discovery of surviving royal dragons was the most significant find in decades. They immediately approved funding for a proper research facility and sanctuary. "The cubs will remain with your family," Veltar told the Morrisons. "But this will become an official council operation. Scientists and protectors will come to help establish the sanctuary." Amy knelt beside Ember and Ash, both cubs nuzzling against her with relief. "Did you hear that? You get to stay home?" Jake looked around at his simple terraforming facility. "I guess we're about to become very busy." Lisa was already planning. "We will need medical facilities, proper dragon habitats, communication equipment to contact other dragon colonies. And Amy will need training," Veltar added. "Her ability to communicate with dragons makes her the most important human in the galaxy right now. She will become the first official dragon speaker." Amy felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders, but also excitement. Through her connection with the cubs, she could sense other dragons scattered across distant worlds, waiting for the royal line to call them home. 6 months later, Zarian 7 had been transformed. The new dragon sanctuary covered hundreds of square miles, with modern facilities for both humans and dragons. Scientists from dozens of worlds had come to study the unique bond between Amy and her dragon companions. Ember and Ash had grown into magnificent young adults, their powers fully developed, but always under control when Amy was near. Learned to work with human technology while maintaining their ancient dragon wisdom. The first group of wild dragons had arrived 3 weeks earlier, responding to the cubs' call across the stars. They were amazed to find their lost royalty alive and thriving under human protection. Amy stood on the sanctuary's observation deck, watching Ember and Ash play with the newest arrivals, 3 dragon cubs rescued from illegal traders in the Outer Rim. Sight filled her with pride and hope. Commander Veltar joined her at the railing. "Your family did something remarkable here," he said. "You proved that compassion can overcome fear, that different species can work together." "Just did what was right," Amy replied. "Anyone would have helped those cubs." "No," Veltar said quietly. "Most species would have been too afraid or too concerned with following rules. Humans chose to see individuals in need instead of dangerous animals." Amy smiled as Ember flew over to greet her, the adult dragon landing gracefully beside her human partner. The bond between them had grown stronger every day, creating something new in the galaxy, a partnership between species based on mutual respect and love. "This is just the beginning," Amy said, her hand resting on Ember's warm scales. "There are still dragons out there who need help, and so many species who could benefit from dragon protection." The twin suns set over Zarian 7, painting the sky in the same golden colors as dragon scales. In the distance, the calls of dragons echoed across the desert. No longer sounds of loneliness, but songs of hope. The galaxy had its guardians back. And they had learned something new. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from power, but from the courage to show kindness to those who need it most.